But yes, we've done so many sessions that are all on our YouTube page. And tell your friends, tell coworkers, tell anyone in the Tableau community that this is out there for people. So you can always go back and look at the sessions on YouTube. Today's agenda, we'll talk about just upcoming events, the meeting format for today. Our featured speakers are primarily Jared Schulman. He's been with Zio a number of years, incredible Tableau expert. He has led a number of these sessions. And we're going to talk today about zone visibility, which is a newish feature in Tableau that Jared will dive into and provide a number of examples of how you could use it in Tableau. And like any session that we have, we'll always have Q&A. We've made these meetings open, so if you have questions as we go, please feel free to come off of mute, or you can leverage the chat window and I'll chime in and ask Jared a question. Or you could wait till the end and you can ask the questions there. This is a webinar meeting, so if you could just please observe that customary Zoom etiquette. So if you're not asking a question, just stay on mute so we have a crisp recording for YouTube. And again, we'll have Q&A at the end. We'll always send the recording out, and you can go to YouTube and find all those sessions that we've recorded in the past. All right. Jared, do you want to give an intro on yourself? I feel like I always do an intro, but it's always great for people to hear from you and your experience and your background. I think that'd be helpful.
Yeah, sure thing. My name is Jared Schulman. I'm one of our Tableau leads here at Zio Matrix. I've been in the Tableau ecosystem for 8 years now, mostly Tableau desktop, but probably like 6 years of Tableau prep as well. And I came into like data analytics out of the higher education industry. So if we have any public sector folks on the call, you're my people. Good to see you. And I kind of moved from strictly higher ed over into like sports and entertainment, working in college athletics, and then back onto the business side of higher ed. And throughout that whole time, did a lot of sort of consultative building of data shops and ended up parlaying that into working here at Zio Matrix, helping all sorts of companies build out data shops, get into the Tableau ecosystem, have success in the product. And it's been a great run. It's been a great place to be. And getting to do these data-driven communities is a really fun way to kind of build on that and help bring Tableau to more people.
Cool. Thank you, Jared. For anyone that doesn't know me, I'm Stuart Tinsley. I've been in Tableau really it's close to 10 years. I need to update the slide. Almost 10 years. Used to work at Tableau. I lead our sales group for Zio Matrix, but have done consulting work and have done a few sessions on our community. But I'm really excited to turn it over to Jared because he is far better in the product than I. So let's get into the demo. Jared, do you want to take a second and just talk about what you'll be covering with zone visibility, or maybe even what is zone visibility, what you can use it for might be a good starting point.
Yeah, totally. So dynamic zone visibility was a new feature that got released, I want to say in 2022.3. So it's still fairly new in the Tableau world, and it's a feature that lets you show or hide dashboard elements based on some kind of Boolean criteria or parameter. So what that means, practically speaking, is if you've ever done sheet swapping in the past, where you had to set up a parameter or a calculation that would filter out all of the data in a view based on some criteria, and then another view with a slightly different data setup that was unfiltered when the other one was filtered, just to get those views to sort of swap with each other on a dashboard. Dynamic zone visibility makes that like 50% easier. So there's still a little bit of setup, but it not only lets you do sheet swapping easier, it lets you expand that to more than just sheets. So dynamic zone visibility lets you show and hide whole containers on dashboards. You can show and hide legends, filters, like navigation menus. So there's really no limit to what you can show and hide with dynamic zone visibility, whereas sheet swapping in the past was a lot clunkier and limited to just the actual sheets on the dashboard. So
That's
we're
a
going to go
good
through.
overview.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks. We're going to go through like three different ways to use and set up dynamic zone visibility, and we'll talk to some of the different use cases for it as well.
Sweet. Let's get into it. Live demo time. I'll stop sharing. And like I said earlier, if anyone has questions as we go, you can come off mute, ask a question, use a chat window. I'll keep monitoring that. And Jared, I'll pass you the ball here.
Excellent. Well, cool. This is going to be our demo dashboard for today. It's always fun building these out. You know, we schedule these data-driven community meetups, and then we have to kind of scramble and go, okay, well, what can we build for this? How can we show this? And what can we pull together? This is the first one that I've done where I kind of said, I'm bored of Superstore data. Let's see what else Tableau has. So this is using the world indicators data source that comes with Tableau Desktop. If you go and connect to a new data source in Tableau Desktop, you actually have the option of just pulling up this data. And yeah, I wanted to take a look around that data set, see what was in there. And it's a bunch of different like economic, environmental, social measures across various countries and years and regions. So I figured let's build out a dashboard that lets us explore through this data and get a feel for what's out there. So this dashboard starts off with just our title card and then this little navigation map up in the top right. And it says we can click on a region in the world map to show the countries in the region in the views below. So if we do that and we click on the Americas, this is going to use dynamic zone visibility to pick up on the fact that we've clicked that, and it's going to show us the Americas and then the top 5 countries for this measure and the bottom 5 countries for this measure down here at the bottom. And that dynamic zone visibility showed this whole filter bar. It showed this whole container that has multiple sheets within it, all within like one click. Way easier than sheet swapping. And we can come around here and just kind of click around, see what our different measures are. We could filter country and region if we wanted to. There's also this show time series, and this is just a true false parameter that was supposed to be aliased as yes and no instead of true and no, but I guess I didn't click that to check it. So if we click this over to true, now we're going to use dynamic zone visibility to pick up on this parameter value and show this time series at the bottom that lets us see what that trend is like over time for whichever country that we're hovering over up here. So that is also using dynamic zone visibility there. There's one more way that we can use dynamic zone visibility that's a little bit trickier. Right now, we've got top 5 and bottom 5 countries selected here. But if we wanted to get a closer look at a few individual countries, what we've done on the back end, and I'll show how this is all set up after this, is we've set up a set in the data and a set action on the dashboard that lets us highlight a few of the countries. And when we do that, that's sending a signal back to the dynamic zone visibility Booleans that says we have multiple countries selected now. So we want to get rid of the top 5 and bottom 5 and just show that zoomed in look at those few countries that we've selected. So we can kind of get the exact values for the countries that we want to look at in that set. And then if we click off of that, it's going to go away. We don't have any countries selected now, so we get our top 5 and bottom 5 back. All of this is on one dashboard. All of it is controlled by like 3 or 4 different Booleans for dynamic zone visibility. That one was my favorite one to be able to use that set action. That was a fun one.
Yeah, we got to see that. We got to see how you set that up
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
So let me back out of presentation mode and we can talk through how this is done. So to start up at the top, this map for navigation, this is this is built off of a couple of filters and then the dynamic zone visibility. There's actually one more dynamic zone visibility feature going on here. We can combine multiple criteria. So in this case, Oceania only has 13 countries in it on this map. And so instead of showing the top 5 and bottom 5, I said, well, let's just show all 13 for Oceania because it's a pretty short list. So this is looking at which region is selected as well to pull out the full list instead of the top and bottom 5. Um, Anyways, to go back, this show and hide here on this container is using this region dynamic zone visibility field that we created. And if we come in here, all that that is saying, it's looking at this region parameter and checking to see if it's none. So this is working in conjunction with a parameter action on the dashboard. That region parameter, if we come back to the dashboard and look at our dashboard actions, the region parameter is being set by this parameter 1. So this is a parameter action on the region map, actually on the world map. We don't need it on these. Those were just added in later. So on the world map for the source sheet, we've got the region parameter being targeted based on the region field. So anytime we click on the world map, it's going to set the region parameter according to the region field on this map. So that means that when we go in and we click on Americas, it's going to change that to Americas. When we click on Africa, it's going to switch it to Africa, Europe, etc. And when we opened the workbook, the value for that was set to none. So I can come over here to my sheet and change that to none. And we come back to this view that's just our title card and our map. And as soon as our end user goes in and clicks on one of those, now it's going to show us the sheets below. And that's based on that region DZV that's telling us that there is a region selected in the map. Does that make sense? And then moving
Makes sense to me.
forward.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
If there are any questions that come up, let us know. Happy to dive into this a little bit more. It's kind of like riding a bike where the first couple times you set up dynamic zone visibility, you're like, okay, I don't quite understand how this is all working, but it's working and that's cool. And then you just kind of get used to it. A much more simple example is this show time series. So this is just a parameter that is set to either yes or no. And that is controlling this sheet down here. So we called this parameter time series. And it's just saying, is the time series not no or yes? So if it's yes, then it's going to show it. If it's no, it's going to hide that. So this is something that, to take a small tangent, if you have a parameter that's being used to control the time period visible on your dashboard, you may have that parameter set with options for year to date, month to date, rolling 12 months, and you might have like a custom option. So this is a situation where you can use dynamic zone visibility to say, if that is custom, if you want that custom date range for that date parameter, then you can show 2 parameters for the start date and end date that you want to use for that custom date. And if it's not set to the custom date, it'll hide those. And that's less confusing for your end users. That way they don't see those 2 dates and wonder why it's not showing anything different when they're actually set to year to date. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It looks like we have a question, repeat for parameter mapping. So if I'm understanding the question correctly, the parameter that's being used on the map it's set by the region field. So this map has the region field over here on text, on detail, on color. And so our parameter action up here in the dashboard actions is using the region field from the world map as a source. And so that's the source field, and that's the value that's being put into the region parameter. So when that region parameter is equal to anything other than none, whether it's equal to Americas, Africa, Middle East, Asia, it's going to show these views here because we're telling it that when that condition is true, when it's not equal to none, that's when we want to show that visibility of this container. Awesome. Okay, cool. So then, Stuart, does that make sense on that sort of date filter use case as well? Because I know that's something that we run into a lot where we have clients who
Yeah.
want to, show a defined time period or custom, and there never used to be a way to hide those custom dates.
Yeah. That's a really good one.
Right on. Yeah, I know that's it's come in handy for us a lot. Hopefully that lights up a light bulb for somebody and they go, oh yeah, I could totally use that for something on mine. Um, the same thing is true for like legends. If you want to show or hide legends, you can put a parameter on your dashboard to just say show legends. And if they hit yes, then it's going to show it, especially if you have a view with just a ton of marks in it that has, 20 or 30 different colors. You don't want to have that on your dashboard all the time. It's going to be a pain to scroll through. It's really difficult to read. So you can hide that with dynamic zone visibility and just kind of like tuck it off to the side to where you can show it with a parameter. And you can set that parameter up as like a radio button too. So it's just kind of click on or off. That's a really nice way to do those things that you just want to show or not show. So yeah, a couple of different options for that. The one that is built for Oceania, I'm trying to remember exactly how we did this. So this is using the Oceania field. This is one that gets a little bit tricky because if you'll see, this is looking at is the region parameter Oceania, but also the country set cannot be greater than one. And that'll make a little bit more sense when we go into that country set. But what I want you to notice here is these curly brackets that are showing this is a fixed level of detail calc. One of the criteria for dynamic zone visibility is the field that you use to trigger it has to be a constant value. What that means is it can't change based on what's in your view. So if we were using like sum of sales depends on what else is in the view. Is it sum of sales by region, sum of sales by category? But if we were to use the fixed maximum sum of sales with no particular level of detail just for the whole data set, that's never going to change. And so what we have to do here is take the fixed maximum or minimum or what have you of the true false region parameter equals Oceania and the true false of not country set is greater than one. So that part's a little bit tricky. The only thing to really remember from that is if you have a field that you're trying to use for dynamic zone visibility and it's not showing up when you're over in your dashboard and you have this control visibility using value, if you don't see the field that you're trying to use there, go back and double check and just see, do I need to make this a fixed level of detail calculation? And is the value going to be constant? So parameters like the show time series, those are always going to be constant because you can't affect a parameter value through any other filter or calculation. But if you're using a calculated field, like a calculated Boolean, you just need to make sure that it's going to be a constant, unchanging value based on what you have in your dashboard. Does that make sense? That one's tricky.
That is a bit trickier. Jared, not to put you on the spot, but I wonder if it'd be helpful for people who have never done zone visibility to do one from scratch, like do an example. And I'm thinking we could pick even in Superstore like category, subcategory, and map something out. Would that be feasible?
Yeah. Yeah, we could do something like
Just
that.
something at random here, just to show. Because I think when I was learning zone visibility, it was helpful to go through all the steps, right? And there are a
Mhm.
couple, just to see you. And then having seen that, I think these examples are like, wow, what you could do with them. But yeah, maybe we connect up the Superstore. We grab whatever you think is best, like sales and subcategories and categories, and show a practical example with that data.
Yeah, so let's dive into that. So let's take category and subcategory. And let's see. Yeah, we'll grab sales. Why not? And I'm trying to think if we have. So this will be, let's do this. Let's do the set-based example for this, because this will be like the most complicated example we can give. And then we can show a more simple one if that's too much. So we've
Yeah,
got our
sounds good.
category, we've got our subcategory, and we've got our sum of sales. And then if we wanted to say, let's see. So let's look at the by state, or rather let's go by region. Yeah, all right. This is going to look a little bit ugly because we're doing it on the fly, but this will be fun. So we've got that, and then let me grab state as well. Okay. We'll pull out category and subcategory, our region, our state. May actually put these in a horizontal container. There's only so far I can go with winging it, Stuart. I still have things
we
organized somehow.
we certainly preach containers, so good that we
Sure.
practice what we preach.
Yeah. Yeah, we gotta
Hmm.
keep things organized.
Yes. All right, so you have three sheets here. You've got one sheet breaking up category, subcategory sales, then a sheet for region based off of sales, and then you've got a state level view of sales.
Exactly. Yeah. So I've got
Okay.
category, I've got region, and I've got state.
Okay.
So what I want to do from here is I'm going to create a set based off of the subcategory. And all I'm going to do here is just create the set and leave it as is. So I'm not going to make any changes to this. And that just
Yep.
kind of creates a bucket that we can put subcategories into. And we'll go ahead and create an action to put the subcategories in that bucket. So we're going to change set values. We're going to use sheet 10, which is our categories, targeting the subcategory set. We'll run it on select, which means that when we click it, it's going to add it. It's going to assign values to the set. And if we clear the selection, we want it to remove all the values from the set. So all that does is
Okay.
change the values in the set based on the subcategories that we select. And what I want to do now is I'm going to create a couple of Boolean calculations. So this is going to be subcategory is greater than 1. So in my subcategory set, if this is true, if it's part of the subcategory set, then give me the subcategory. And I'm not even going to put in the else null. I'm just going to do end. So this is saying if a subcategory is a member of the subcategory set, tell me what that subcategory is. And I want to get a distinct count of this. But then I know this also has to be a constant value to work in dynamic zone visibility. So I'm just going to pop curly brackets on it to make that a fixed distinct count. And then I also want the inverse of this. So let's duplicate this. And we're going to say this is less than or equal to 1. So by default, we know that, let's see if this will work with this outside. We need to, let me do the same here, make sure this is greater than 1. So I'm wondering if this greater than 1 being outside of our fixed calc is going to be enough to make it unusable. We may have to, yeah, I think it is. Okay, so we just have to move that inside the fixed calc. So if that is less than or equal to 1, moving that inside the bracket is going to keep that at the fixed level overall and not consider anything outside of it. If I come back to my dashboard, now I've got the option to use those. So what I want to do is I want to apply the, let's see, so let's take subcategory is less than or equal to 1 on state. And we're going to use it, and we're going to put the greater than or equal to 1 on subcategory. So immediately that goes away because we have 0 subcategories in our set. And so now if we highlight a couple of these subcategories, we can see that region map pop up. Now what would be helpful to do from there is if we actually set the set on filters so that we saw what we were highlighting. This is also a situation where we're applying multiple different techniques here. So we can see that as we select more subcategories, our view is changing. So we have multiple selected, and that is letting us see by region what the sales breakdown is. But if we click on a single one, we actually get the view by state for that single subcategory. Now, is that like the perfect use case for this? Maybe not, but this kind of shows how a lot of these things that we've been covering over the past, I don't know, Stuart, 6 months, all come together. We're using the containers for dashboarding. We're using sets. We're using actions. Now we're using this dynamic zone visibility. So this lets us really add a lot of interactivity without sacrificing space on our dashboard, if that makes sense.
I think that's the biggest key, is that you're able to, where in the past you might have had to do sheet swapping like you mentioned earlier, or have an entirely different dashboard. Now, as I see it, now zone visibility gives more options to stay within one view and look at things much differently.
Yeah, I mean, you could get to the point where you just said, hey, I want to see the region view as soon as one of these is selected. And then if I click on a region, I want to see the states. So you can build in that like native drill down to your dashboards. There's just so much functionality that can come out of dynamic zone visibility. Question in the chat.
What about
go ahead.
Yeah. No, yeah. Aral had a question about
the control visibility using box.
Hmm.
This is always going to be on that layout tab whenever you have something selected on your dashboard. So if you're over here in the dashboard view and you come over to layout, as long as you have something selected, that'll pop up. And it doesn't matter, like if we go back to the other dashboard, if that's a filter, if it's a parameter, if it's a sheet, if it's like a whole container, you can select it and control that visibility. Do it for text boxes, anything you want to do on your dashboard.
Yeah. All right, Jared, could we do an even simpler one then? I mean, that was like, I mean, as you mentioned, like harder to get to. What about like a basic example, maybe where it's doing some kind of sheet swap, um, like replacing, I don't know, subcategory with category or something like that? Just a more simple one. Would that be possible to show?
Yeah, yeah, we could do that.
Yeah,
We think through what that would look like. So
maybe maybe like you've got a view of sales broken down by category, and then the option to flip to um, a, a different breakdown, like subcategory or some other element.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So if
something like
we
that.
had, we just chop up what we already have here.
Yeah.
So if we've got our sales by category and subcategory, we'll take category, we'll take subcategory. And we get rid of this. This is going to be our subcategory. So in this instance, if we just wanted the option to flip back and forth, we can create a parameter
Yeah.
called viewBy, and then set this to either category or subcategory. And so that gives us this parameter now that has those two values. And all we need to do is create a couple of Boolean fields. So is category selected is going to be viewBy equals category. So because this is based on a parameter, it should be constant. It shouldn't be, it won't change based on anything in the workbook. So we should be able to use this to control dynamic zone visibility. I'm going to eat my words if it comes back and says that we need to make that fix. And then when I go to create another one like this, especially if it's just one or the other, you can come in here and say like view by equals subcategory. That's probably the more future-proof way to do it in case you add more options. More often than not, I just say it's not equal to category because I know there's only one other option, and that's fewer clicks. So if we do that and we come back over here, so here we can say for the subcategory, we want to control that visibility when subcategory is selected. And for category, we want to control that visibility when category is selected. And if we expose that parameter that we had for view by, that took up a lot of space. There we go. Then we can switch this back and forth, and it's going to swap in that whole sheet.
Yeah. And you could have another sheet that was by region or by state, and you could have many different views, right?
Yeah, so if we had something, I think 11 was, yeah, so this is regions, this is states. If we throw state on map, Canada in there, that looks like that's funky. So if we do this and we duplicate it as a bar chart, so you could do the same sort of thing with view by. If we did like map versus bar.
Yes, I love this example.
So this way, depending on how your end users want to see the data, you can switch between types of visits too. So if we had down here in our like bottom left, let's see, that's already on there. So just clear that. And then we need to set up our, oh, we already have view mapper bar. So I'm just going to come in here and duplicate one of these Booleans. And this, like, it can be this simple where we just say, hey, we want to give people the option to view a visualization either on a map or as a bar.
Or as a grid, a lot of people want numbers, right? They just want it to be visual and numbers, right?
Mm-hmm. Just for kicks. Yeah, this is obviously an ugly dashboard, but yeah, we can switch between showing the map, showing the bar. There we go. Really wanted to get that over there.
Yeah, so you could call that parameter chart types or like, different views, view by bar, view by map, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could get very creative with this, format it nicely, and have it just display the data in different ways, right? So just to summarize, the example you just went through here was the first was to show what was traditionally done with sheet swapping, right? Where we looked at category and then we're able to flip it to subcategory view, right? Swap the sheet. And then the second example, you're showing different, you could use zone visibility to view the same, just to switch the view, how Tableau is displaying the data. Is that
Mm-hmm.
accurate? Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So I
It
mean
was like,
that's oh, go ahead.
yeah, we had a question that came in. Let's see.
Yeah, what I'm trying to ask is created a parameter, we added values, right? I mean, my question
Mhm.
is how it mapped the sheet, like which to display, which not to display. So it maps the sheet name with the values that we added in parameter.
It's not so much that it maps the sheet names to the values. It's based on what you set in the control visibility using.
Okay.
So in this case, we have it set to the view bar,
Hmm.
which is a Boolean calculation that just asks, is the view mapper bar set to bar? So it's not automatic. You still have to kind of set it and say, all right, the parameter has values of map or bar. So
Hmm.
I need to know when it's bar, and I'm going to create this calculation that does that. And now that
Okay.
we have a calculation that knows when it's bar, we can come to our sheet that has the bar and control the visibility based on that parameter that's looking for bar.
Hmm.
So all kind of manual, not really an automatic process.
Yeah, yeah, I think I understood.
And then yeah, Stuart, the what we went through here is really like the building blocks of everything that we did over here that has some like the cleaner formatting with the multiple views all set together where you can, look at these different, this is like the same thing as the view mapper bar. It's, do we have multiple countries selected? And if we do, show me those countries. If
Mm,
we don't have multiple
yeah,
countries selected, then just show me the top and bottom five. And it's all based on the same logic. It's all just true and false calculations.
it's really cool. All right, now we're coming up on 10, 15 minutes here. Does anyone have questions? Any Any questions that people have? Well, you've had some really good ones, so feel free to ask any more.
Yeah,
Jared, what I'll ask a question. Like when this feature came out, like where did you go to get more, I guess, more help, more information on how it could be used? Zone visibility.
yeah. Well, I'll give you two answers. So one, typically whenever there's a new feature out, there's going to be something from Tableau that's released that gives some more information about it. Somebody's going to be
Yeah.
posting in the community forums or news on YouTube about, hey, here's this new feature, here's how it works. But honestly, we've got such a good team here that typically by the time something new comes out, there's somebody on the team who's like, hey, I found this really cool thing. Let me show everybody. Here's how it works. So I get a lot of the news on new features that way, just from our other consultants here.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Um, yeah, now we've got a little bit of time. Are there any other examples that you could think of? I mean, I feel like you went through some really good examples that were more kind of fundamental, those last ones. Um, have you seen any other use cases that have come up in different projects that people could be thinking about?
Yeah, I'll give you one that I really like. This was like back in 22 when this first came out. I was working with one of our colleagues on a project where, depending on what was on the sheet and what filters were selected, it was like ranking like call center employees by number of
Hmm.
calls. And sometimes it would be 50 employees, and sometimes it would be five. And what we found out was that the KPI box that had that ranking in it could hold about 7 rows of data. And instead of trying to just use like a fit with, so this might be an example here. Like if we did fit with, it doesn't really fill up the whole box. It looks a little bit weird. So it's nice to have this fit the entire view. But if this didn't always show 5, if this could show like 50, it would get all scrunched up, totally unreadable. So what we did was we created a calculation kind of like this one that looks for multiple countries selected. And we said, if based on all the criteria, and we put all of that into the fixed level of detail calculation, if the number of call center employees in this view is going to be less than or equal to 7, then use this view. And it was a view that was to fit the entire view of that KPI box.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
if it's going to be greater than 7, we had it fit with so that you could get a vertical scrolling bar. And it was a really little thing on the dashboard that just added so much to the visual appeal of the dashboard, because you never had this white space underneath. It either filled up the whole thing because it was stretching, or it was enough that you were going to have a vertical scroll bar. And it's those little touches for formatting that really take visual design on dashboards to the next level and just makes it look
Mm.
cleaner for clients or end users.
That's a really awesome example because, yeah, I can see where you might have data that pulls back so many records that, yeah, if you fit entire view, it's you can't see a thing, you can't read a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a different view for that where it goes to scroll, that's way better. But then auto fits it when there are less records pulled back.
Exactly.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's a really good example. Wow. Yeah,
Yeah, and I mean
cool.
it's one of those like weird edge cases, use cases for dynamic zone visibility, but we're really kind of in the deep end of Tableau right now. So if you're watching this webinar and you're like, wow, this seems kind of complicated, this seems kind of tough, that's okay. It is. This is definitely not like Tableau 101 stuff, but when you can find the use cases for it and deploy it, it's a really cool feature.